Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Moses Alexander Green, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the Director of Performing Arts and Film. And I start every program by saying I have the best job in the world because I get a chance to make sure that our galleries and our outside spaces are activated with dance, theater, music, film, and lectures. And today is a very special day in the life of our museum. But I would like to first pause and acknowledge our wonderful CEO and Executive Director, Dr. Valerie Hillings. And just one bit of housekeeping, if everyone look at your phone, please put it on silent. We don't want anything disturbing us from this wonderful conversation that we're going to have. And at this time, I would like to introduce our Chief Curator, Linda Doherty.
Thank you, Moses. So I am the Chief Curator and the Curator of Contemporary Art here at the museum, and it is a great pleasure for me to be able to introduce Leonardo Drew and Ursula von Rydingsvard to you. We had a dinner last night, and I said, as a curator, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I do. And Leo and Ursula are among my two most favorite artists and favorite people, and I'm so thrilled to be able to have them here today. So I did not know that Leo and Ursula were friends. And Leo came here last year, I think it was early January, to see the exhibition that we did of his work, this magnificent solo exhibition serving his career. And we drive up to the museum and he sees Ursula's sculpture in front of the West Building, the one you see on the screen now. He's like, stop. I have to get my picture taken in front of this sculpture. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, oh, Ursula and I, anytime we see each other's work anywhere in the world, we take a picture of ourselves in front of it and send it to each other. And I was like, this makes perfect sense that you are friends. Because I look at their work, and if you see it side by side, there's this incredible synergy, just completely simpatico. So I was telling Valerie, our director, this story, and she immediately said, we need to bring them here to do a lecture together. And so we thought, what could be a more perfect celebration of the reinstallation of our collection that features both of their works than to have them come here and give a talk together. So the way this will work is that each artist will give a presentation of their work. We'll start with Ursula and then with Leo. And then all three of us will sit on stage. I will ask them a few questions, and then we will open it up so that you all can ask them questions. So let me start by introducing Ursula to you. Ursula von Rydingsvard has worked with wood as a medium for most of her career, creating vessel-shaped forms that reference the landscape, the human body, and domestic objects in monumental structures that have forceful and dramatic physical presences. She creates her works intuitively, layer by layer, without preliminary sketches or models, and the irregular markings that cover the entire surface remind the viewer that this is a labor-intensive process. She says, "My love for wood is part of my history. I come from a long line of Polish peasant farmers, and they were surrounded with wood. Wooden homes, wooden fences, domestic implements, wooden tools to farm the land. There is, I guess, a feeling of familiarity, a feeling of comfort and grace, and at the same time, because of the familiarity, I can really push it around." Her works are in countless public and private collections, including ours, the North Carolina Museum of Art, the Cincinnati Art Museum, the Detroit Art Institute, the High Museum, the Metropolitan Museum in New York, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Nelson Atkins Museum in Kansas City, the Whitney Museum in New York, and I could just keep going. Permanent commissioned sculptures by her include works at the San Francisco International Airport, Stanford University, Princeton University, and MIT, among other places. She has had numerous solo and group exhibitions all over the world, including a solo presentation at the 56th Venice Biennale. And in 2019, a documentary film was released about her practice. So please join me in welcoming Ursula von Rydingsvard to the museum.
Hi. I'm just going to read something that's just a few minutes before I come to the the one that you're going to be familiar with. Why do I make art? I have sometimes been asked why I make art. It's not a question that I find easy to answer with any kind of clarity, but I will try to poke around some possibilities. Why do I make art? Mostly to survive, to ease my high anxiety, to numb myself with the labor and the focus of building my work. Objects, or the process by which I concretize my ideas, feels so good because I invariably, especially with my monstrous pieces, run into intense anxiety moments from which I have to unravel myself. Because there's a pleasure in it, because there's pain in it, because I endure a hefty load of self-doubt, because I have confidence in the possibility of seeing this work through, because I see life as being full of abominations, because life is full of marvels close to miracles, because I still don't get who I am, because I will never get who I am. Because my deepest admiration goes to those who make art that has interested me. Because I want attention from those who make good art. Because I need to use both my body and my mind. The labor of my body is what keeps me awake and alive. What numbs me and offers a kind of veneer between me and the things in life which are painful to face. Because the visuals, that which I perceive through my eyes, are extraordinarily important part of my life. Because I don't want to be doing anything else with my life. That the building of my artwork feels like the most consequential thing I could be doing with my time. Because I can run into a world of my making both physically and mentally. Because I like working with a group of assistants who become another kind of family. Because I like the daily rhythm of going to my studio. Because it's a place to put my pain, my sadness. Because there's a constant hope inside me that this process will heal me, my family, and the world. Because it helps fight my inertia. Because I like embroidering around my long ago Polish fantasies. Because I can reach into the future with my work. Because I constantly need to try to better understand the immense suffering and pain of my family that I never seem to be able to really understand. And also because I want to get answers to questions for which I know there are no answers. Okay, now we're on, thank you. Thank you. we're looking at ogromna, and ogromna sound. It's a Polish word, and it ends with an A, meaning that it's a female, and it and just the word ogromna just makes you want to stand in attention. So that's the reason why I chose that name. But ogromna means huge, big, large. So that's the piece that you have, that you own, that's been here now for 14 years, and she's so happy here. Because all of the winds, all of the colds and the hots are sort of perfect for her. So she's in great shape, almost the same shape she was in when she started. So I'm just going to take you through here she comes from New York City. It's not New York City, it's actually, I'm in Bushwick. I have a studio there in Brooklyn, and that's where she was born. And she's here by this time with this. Or no, that's my studio. The thing in it is, so this is her coming to you. So next one. So they're starting installing. Just take a look at the bottom. So this is what she's going to be sitting on for a long, long time. Next. More building on her, on ogromna. Okay, next. Next, that's the last one. And that's just a part of her, the top part of her. But I'm hoping that you enjoy her as much as she enjoys you. So there's next. This is cisza, and in Polish this means silent, cisza, and that's the A ending, which is a female. So during the pandemic, I was very interested in making things that are vulnerable, as those times were so vulnerable. So I started making the art that, and this is very hard for you to see on this take, this photograph, that I tried to make it look as though she was shedding her skin, her body. Okay, so next one, and that's the bottom of it, and that's the indication, but the indication is there all over her body at the top if the camera was put in the right place to show you. So it's like her shedding. And next one. Okay, here's my making, the cisza. This is the cedar, the 4x4 that I use. And every edge, every part of that 4x4, I draw on it first before the cutters cut it. So everything is touched by me on her. And it's very, very labor intensive. Okay, next one. This is called obudować. It's again in Polish, and this is meaning built. And it was done during the pandemic as well. And I think it's the first one that we did during the pandemic, and it's huge. It's sort of, she's a little bit to the front of us, but you're getting the idea about it being large. That I made some things that I don't know what they looked like, and I don't want to even tell you that I was trying to make it look like this. But if I had to have a gun into my head, I'd say that it would be something like that would be very comforting, like a nest or like any. But they're not all the same at all. Everyone is different. And I had somewhere in my head that there is a terrible storm that's happening at the top. And as you can see, it seems like the outside of the pieces are more, you can see them more clearly than you can as you go to the right more and more. And then one of the things that were very, very important to me is that I then shoved it off the place that it was born, that it just fell off, but it's still hanging on. Okay, next. This has a Finnish name from Finland, and it's Dottir, Dottir, and the O has the 2 dots on it, and it just indicates what it was daughter. Even in Finland, it's daughter, and there's. In this piece, I wanted to have, this is a she, obviously, to be proud, and somehow I figured out that doing something like pancakes on her body, that she would like it, and I liked the way that it looked. So that's what I did. And she's got a really hefty arm that just doesn't touch like 1/16 of above the floor. Okay. The next one. Yes, this is my further, trying to deal with daughter. Next. This is for Stash. Stash is my brother. I adore him. And that just gives you a sense of the size of the piece. And next, this is a piece that's at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and it's called, it's a bronze bowl, and it's called bronze bowl with lace. And you can see the perforations at the top, which I call lace. This lace is so marvelous against the sky, especially at night. Next one. And they're all patterns that I make, that I draw. And I'll show you a picture of that. And then the next one, and here she becomes a little bit more sexy. This is the other side of her. It's very important that as I work, especially in something like this, that I don't bore myself. It's the biggest sin to me, and to waste the time that way in boredom. So, so I want to entertain. Entertain is the wrong word, but I don't know what word to come up with. It's just wanting to catch something else, something different, something more exciting, something that fits it better, something that's going to make you excited. So I'm pretty crazy about this one. Okay, the next one. This one is called Mozna. I think this is a terrible slide. So we'll go forward. And it's in Stanford. We'll go forward. So this is what happens at night. It's not even night. It's just barely night. But it's very thin, and it's... and Mozna again means strong, and the A ending meaning strong woman. Lace, let's see, lace perforations. Yes, it looks like lace, but it's not. It's really not lace. Okay. Okay, Scientia, the next one. This is at MIT. And just keep this in your mind in terms of the size. And then I'm going to show you the perforations. Next. Well, that's not quite the perforation, but this very beautiful patinas, and this is obviously done in bronze. And I do personally the patinas. So next, here they are. And you can feel so much of the body, so much of the flesh, but also, you can feel a kind of fabric as well. So, and at night, let's see, maybe the next one can be more at night. Yes. At night, it's just glorious, glorious. These perforations are just marvelous. And they're hard to come by. Next. And that's me drawing the things that are going to be perforated. So that's one of the patterns, and I have a number of them. So it's a lot of work. So Scientia, I'm just going to show you one more. This is in the foundry. And obviously, they have many more pieces to her. There's many more pieces to her. Okay, and that's at MIT. And next, Ona. This is at the Barclay Center, which is in New York City. And she is somebody that could easily get lost because it's a huge building, that's around her. So it took some doing for me to figure out how to get her to feel strong. But she's gone through a number of marches, and she stands above the people marching, which I like. Next. So this is the Storm King Art Center, and she's called Luba. I think you can kind of see what you see. But there's an appendage. I love those appendage. And there's another appendage to her that you see. And then they turn into two appendage at the bottom. And they had to be bronze, but the rest is cedar. And that had to be because when the cedar is this thin, it would never be able to live as cedar. Next, and this is my working on it. And when I work, I so yearn, a ceiling that's just a little bit more. And that's how this one was. This was really up to the, and I'm so grateful for however it is, how high it is. Okay, next one. A piece that's just on the walls. This is a collar with dots. And the next one. This is a beautiful cut out cedar panels. There are 5 of them. And they have so much detail, and this detail we give to it with the circular saw. And we're so good with the circular saw that we can get these details, these very, I don't know, they're like thin drawings, vulnerable drawings. And it's around this sort of thing that's floating above it. And I'm going to make them all into bronze. And it's possible to have these, the small, thin lines to appear with all of these lines, even the thin ones. So I'm going to be putting something in front of this, of these 5 pieces. This is something that I'm working on right now. That the things that I'm going to be putting in front of it is they're going to be relatively thin, and they're going to be maybe like 10 feet in front of it, and they're going to be on a side of the outside that's going to have a higher, you know, that it's going to be a lower part, and there's going to be a higher part. And these will be on a higher part, and the lower part will be a form that I'm working on doing in front, but that does not really erase all of the drawings in these panels. And I think that I'm done. No, no, 2 more pages. Are you bored or no? No, so I can go on. Okay. Here, I'm just going to show you Bervici Pici Pa is the name of, this is what children do to one another. It's like teasing, bervici pici pa, you know, and then they have something else that they add to it and make an adjective, sometimes good, sometimes bad. So this is in the Bloomberg building. Do all of you people, it's in the that's in New York City. Anyway, that's it. And I always laugh because, you know, the name is weird. You know, nobody knows what the name is, and it doesn't matter because I don't want anybody to, you know, like I hate to say, but I've done this, like bowl with something, you know, like you can't explain a piece. You can't just say that this is what it is because it's not. You know, it's something that floats, something that you just you can have it different ways, different days of what it is. But anyway, so can you take the next one? Oh yeah, this is how I did it in my studio. But it's kind of in a building where something like money counts so heavily and everybody is so smart with money and so smart with the tools that they work with, the computers that they work with. And I put this thing in the place that they come into their workplace. I just keep kind of laughing that they allow it because it's kind of belongs more to a farmer or to you know, to something that is different. But obviously I did it deliberately, you know, because this is my way of playing fun. But in any case, I think that they look really well there, and they're being cared for very carefully. Okay, next. That's building that piece too. Next. That's what we use, the circular saws. We got a Japanese person that spent 3 days with us and made us something like 3,000 blades that were very special that we were able to use. And I think I'm gonna die before they're lost. So we were really grateful to him. Okay, next one. This is Ocean Voices. I love this piece. It's from made those balls, those things that are hanging on, is for the fourth stomach of the cow, and I sew it, and it dries, and it's and the name of this is Ocean Floor. Next one. Stop here. Okay, it says here, stop here. But I have one more. Do you want it? No? Okay. Okay, so Ene de Ribe. So that's a piece. And it's huge, as you can see. And the next one, and that's the close-up of it. And then the next. This is a piece at the Storm King Art Center, and it's for Paul. I made it a long time ago. It's my husband. He was my husband. For Paul, let's see, it's cedar and graphite. I mean, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Thank you so much, Ursula. I don't know, Leo, that's going to be a hard act to follow. Okay, so I'm pleased to introduce Leonardo Drew to you. He is a builder and a maker on an epic scale. He creates dynamic, abstract sculptures and installations that explode and expand into their surroundings. His work defies gravity, disrupting normal conventions of time and space, and conveys a feeling of barely contained or restrained energy and chaos. In Leo's words, I think of it as making chaos legible. A highly skilled craftsman, he meticulously and deliberately ages and distresses new materials by painting, burning, staining, corroding, chopping, and splintering to create the appearance of found and weathered objects. In works of art that explore timeless cycles of deterioration, regeneration, and transformation. His work is included in the collections of numerous museums, including ours, also in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Guggenheim Museum in New York, the Tate, London, the Hirshhorn Museum in Washington, D.C., the Brooklyn Museum of Art, Crystal Bridges in Arkansas, the Denver Art Museum, and the DeYoung Art Museum in San Francisco, among many others. His work has been featured in numerous solo and group exhibitions, including here at the NCMA in 2020 and 2021, as well as the Wadsworth Athenaeum, the Mississippi Museum of Art, Madison Square Park in New York City, and the DeYoung in San Francisco, among others. He also has 2 major permanent commissions in California, one at the San Francisco International Airport, and one at Facebook's headquarters in Menlo Park. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Leo to you today.
Cool, all right. Ursula, honey, you make my heart smile. Always. Oh my goodness. Whew. Beginnings, right? These are always interesting. I mean, at least knowing, being aware that you're starting a journey. And when I look, or whenever I see this image, which these days really resonates, it's an absolute political statement, no avoiding it. But the photographer who was taking this photo was kind of ahead, and he's looking at me and he's photographing this and he's cracking up. And that face of mine, which I don't even think I own that face now, you know, that's a serious Leonardo with an afro, you know. And it's because I'm looking at him wondering, why the hell are you laughing, you know? And it's pretty obvious. It's like, okay, it's like, you see the missing button on my coat, where the photos being taken in Bridgeport, P.T. Barnum Apartments, the projects, and I make this life-size Captain America statement. And it's, you know, wow. You know, interesting enough, all of my friends will always ask me, you know, like, why aren't you painting any black superheroes? And I was like, it's a black superhero? It's like, it couldn't even imagine. This is like 1972, and part of my first exhibition, actually. So I got started really early. And then Marvel and DC came knocking. Marvel, DC, Heavy Metal Magazine. I had a whole other life before this, you know, what I'm doing, playing around now, you know, but, you know, because it's pretty obvious that Marvel and DC are doing really well now, you know, and I could be making a lot of money. But this is, they came after me because the level of skill, I guess they had heard, even from Westport, most of these guys had homes in Westport, Connecticut. I grew up in Bridgeport and doing exhibitions, and they just wanted to sort of figure out how to get me to come out and work in their, I guess they call them bullpens. I had the opportunity to visit DC and Marvel. And DC at the time had the Superman movie out with Christopher Reeve. And they were like, well, you don't really want to be working with Marvel, you know? We were like, you know, top dog. And little did they know that I had already seen Jackson Pollock. And I'd been poisoned. That was it. I wasn't going anywhere near, you know, this prettified surface, you know, which is what I call, listen, there are artists who have these skills, who can do things with them. I wasn't really willing to sort of make any kind of adjustments. I just needed to be where Jackson Pollock was. And beyond that surface, and obviously, you know, the fact that we're having this conversation now, you know how that ended. I had also seen the Picasso exhibition at MoMA around maybe not too long after. And that completely took the lid off, you know. And this just gives you an idea of like where I was stuck. Decided, you know, no more drawing, no more painting. You're going to have to find another way. And the way that I make the decision to sort of like, you know, get beyond that surface was to take away those elements, tie your hands, just going to be using black. That's it. Figure out something else black, you know, and shape paper, you know, but limit the possibilities of what, or you know, it's just this push forward, reinvent. And when I say reinvent, this is the leap from this to that. All it took was asking the right kind of questions. Why are we here? What are our fears? What's on the other side? Death, obviously, is the one that we really don't know. But I said, how do I get there without actually getting there, you know? So it was like playing with dead animals. I mean, you can see in these close-up images, digging up animals, picking up roadkill. I had learned in Cooper Union how to do the cure animals, skins and interns. So in the end, it was really about, you know, facing death through other means. That's something that has never really left that became my voice. This is the mother piece. It's number 8. And you're going to imagine if we were saying number 8, that they have to be 1 to 7, you know, which were these works, became this, which is the only surviving piece from that period. This is the mother. This is what started everything. Interesting enough, I had seen Ursula's piece around this time. That would have been 1988. And someone knew about this piece and said, you need to go over to Philip Morris and check out what's going on over there. And that was you. And I said, this is my sister, you know. I haven't met her, you know, but she's out there somewhere. I'm going to meet her, you know. And here we are. The details, so you can get an idea, like you can see bird wings and skulls and stuff. I own this piece. Glad that I actually held on to it, but it wasn't really about smarts. It was just the fact that no one else wanted to own it. And at the time, when Roberta Smith, a bunch of others were writing about it, what they were really writing was like whether or not this is art, you know. And they couldn't stop writing about it, but it brought about something that was, I mean, people are using this material now, but in 1988, you know, and I mean, it was like Jean-Michel, Julian Schnabel, Robert Longo actually approached me and said, you know, you need to get out here, you know, to be, you know. And I looked at my work and I looked at those write-ups and I said, well, it ain't art, you know, and I'm not ready, or I'm onto something else. That led to more experiments, obviously oxidation, another form of decay. The voice is still really the same. It's still about, you know, otherness, the other side. Detail that very same piece. I own this one also. And this would have been, I guess, we would call the Breakthrough Exhibition, 1992. Metropolitan owns this one, but it's made of cotton rust. Let's see if there's a detail of that, right? Hello, Ursula. Softer version of Ursula, cotton. That's me pushing the cotton bales in order to make this monstrosity down the streets of Broadway to Jack Whitten's studio. It was my teacher at Cooper Union, and he lived over on Lisbonard, and he allowed me to use his studio while I was creating this exhibition. So I would push the cotton bales, because I didn't have a driver's license, and this is the only way I could get from A to B. So it was like pushing it from 36th Street all the way down to Lisbonard. It was like 30-something blocks, you know. And this was every other day to make this cotton wall thing. Let's see, there it is, which ended up in the Rubel collection, and it's been traveling on the 30 Americans exhibition. And they had the nerve to leave this in the studio while they were creating their little museum situation in Miami. They're not here, so they don't know this story. But what you're seeing actually is probably missing another row because I needed that material. And the fact that they bought it and they left it in the studio was their mistake. But there's only, just let you know that there's really nothing sacred in the studio, all right? It's serious art making, you know? So it's like, okay, if you think you're done, you're not really done if you're still hanging around the studio. So if I need the material, I'm using it. And the piece that you guys have here actually is the very same philosophy. It's never really left. The piece that you guys have here it's made up of a whole bunch of other works. It was in the studio for like 10 years. And when it finally did leave, you know, that was my, you know, you can't touch it anymore because in museums you can't go around taking things apart. So, you know, as I was looking at it, and Ursula and I were looking at it, it was like, oh, okay. Yeah, could be some other things could happen to this piece, you know, if it wasn't in a museum, you know. I mean, all these pieces, interesting enough, come with stories. Not all of them have survived. This piece actually created and I was living in an apartment in Washington Heights. I mean, we're saying an apartment. It wasn't really made for, you know, making art. You're in there, you're sleeping in a bathtub because all the rooms are, you know, studios. So, you know, and, you know, it's your cooking, burning, in an apartment, and of course, smoke is pouring out of the windows, and here comes the fire engines, and the firemen. Now, I didn't connect that with coming to get me. I just thought something was on fire, and didn't realize that as I'm cooking, you can see all these burnt boxes, but I'm determined to sort of get on the other side of this thing, right? And they're coming to put out a fire. And I can only tell you that when they come, and they don't knock on the door. They actually take the hinges off, and they come into your place, and they go after where that fire is. And it was the most surreal experience, It's like, you're I guess, painting by or creating by the edge of your seat, You're determined, and you're not really aware of safeties or, this or that. Anything that's sort of like is real world experience. It's only about getting on the other side of that thing. So you're living in an apartment. You should not be burning, to make art. And they came in, and they were, okay, they didn't ask me any questions. They just went to the stove, looked at what was burning, and then they were all over the apartment, and they were like, oh, talking to the folks down on the ground. Well, he's, cooking something or whatever, burning something. And they say, yeah, fellas, come in here, this room or whatever. Come in here, check this out, And they're looking, and they're scratching their heads, like trying to figure out what's going on here. And I say, I'm an artist. And they were like, oh. The two worlds, interesting enough, rarely meet. In that instance, it was like, oh, I know how to get out of these situations now, Whenever the police grab me when I'm jumping over fences to get at rust material, whatever, you show them what you got, and it's like, they want to take you to jail, but it's like, I'm an artist. Oh, okay. Oh. No problem, And this is this. So just so you know that nothing is sacred, the burnt piece became the rust piece. Just the sheer idea that I'm not going to create, even then, 1,500 boxes again, So if you have 1,500 boxes, it's like, why not use them again, And a lot of times, the more times I touch these works, the more alive they become. So it's almost like layers of like the Grand Canyon. There's history and all that material. Found objects, which I don't use when it's mistakenly, written that I actually use found objects. I don't use found objects. I take new things and I transform them. I become the weather, and I arrive at the other side, which is we are not separate from, we are a part of. I don't think collectively we continue to miss that point. And this is why we have climate, change and the madness in weather now, because we're trying to sort of control or do things or bastardize. But in the end, I am the weather. You are the weather. We should actually fall in line with. And there's a synergy there that should be respected. So in making these pieces, I become the weather. Also looking back at this, I number all these works. I said number 8 in the beginning. This is number 43. It's not like I go around remembering all the numbers, What's your number? 235, see? Just so you know that there are numbers that I remember, other numbers that kind of default by, but I know them. I birthed them, so I know them. But like the idea that I give them these numbers not to remember them, but it's for cataloging purposes. So my closeness to them actually it falls off when you become complicit in finishing the story. That means you need to stand in front of it. It needs to become a mirror. You need to be able to see yourself, feel yourself. You don't have to go through my story in order to realize my works, I am not that far away from you. And actually, I can learn from you by standing next to you while you're standing next to that and you're reading it. I watch your body language, what you have to say about the work. If you don't know who I am, I get even more information. So, boy, okay, this is Merce Cunningham. Gave me a call back in '96 and asked if I would be interested in working with him. And after doing some research, I said, yes, you should actually work with this man. It would be a nice idea. And what he ended up with, because his whole method for creating is that you create the art. He does the phrasing, and then the musician does his thing, all separate from one another. Opening night, all these elements come together, and it's the risk that actually becomes the art. And I learned a lot from that experience. I think there's probably only one other person that I absolutely respect, Stanley Kubrick, who works similar to that. And I make sure that as I'm building, that there's other avenues or other possibilities, and all these things have to sort of come together to create a whole. There's more images. He just asked me if there were any dead things in it. That was only, I said I had stopped working with dead animal parts, but I only had to do that once. But within that, I found my voice. But once I found it, it was like, no matter what materials I was working with, there it was, you know. The weight of life. And this for the Hirshhorn Museum. Boy. I'd say they all come with stories. This one actually is really crazy because, true to my word, the security guard who had to stand in front of this thing pretty much like, for 8 hours a day, here he is. It's like, he's seeing the stories. So whenever a crowd of people would build up in the space, he would let them know, this is what this piece is about. I just happened to be there when he was doing this, and with a friend. And he said, you have to stop him, I said, no, this is when we get a chance to learn, something. So the guy's going on and on about this, and this, and this, and that. And so I asked him, I said, where'd you get all that information? He said, the artist told him. Yeah. So in some way, you're still in there. Even if he's seeing his story, he believes he's seeing your story, Some details. This is probably the only time when I actually did use found objects. I didn't make any of these things, but I was trying to figure out how to bring color back into my work after I had abandoned drawing and painting. And only recently that I actually discovered, and we'll get to that actually in the coming images of my discovery of color for real. But at this point, I had decided that it was time to shake things up again. I said, okay, rusting, burning, all these things. I said, you're getting comfortable with this. Whenever I get comfortable, I have to sort of pull the rug out from under me and actually start again anew and, become a baby again and ask what if. So I said, okay, what would be the most extreme situation that you can put yourself in? I said, okay, white paper. I had spent time in Japan, would do origami, and I said, okay, there's something here that I can sort of realize. I worked with the fabric workshop on this particular piece, but I said, okay, no more of the familiar tropes, no more familiar stuff, no more rusting. That's that, no more of that stuff. White paper. Ann Timken saw this when she was in Philadelphia, thought that we need to have this thing, and I said, you know what, this is absolute failure, because if you're looking at this piece, it certainly looks like plaster to me. It doesn't look like paper. And said, okay, I need to do something with this piece, and this is what it became. I thought if I put them in glass vitrines, which I built also with my hands, and took these very same parts, crushed them, put them in the vitrines, that it would find success, sort of, but I could do like that. It's like maybe, but it did have the opportunity to be bought and taken out. And so it lives. It took 3 years to figure this out, how to take paper and bring it into my language. 3 years of no more showing, just working on paper. It took that long, but I believe that this is a successful rendition of what I was after. It has the emotional weight of the rusted works without actually leaning into that material. Okay, that's a show and exhibition in Siena. Atomic Bag Monster. Another monstrosity. Now, interesting, I heard Ursula say something about monster. I said, wait a minute, that's monsters. Monstrosities, yes. The tongue piece. Interesting because I know that this piece is made up of so many different works, different times, and then I said, okay, you need to do something about this piece. There was a tongue, and then there was the top portion, the bottom portion, and we have the other sections. But in the end, yeah, if they live around the studio, they hang around the studio, inevitably they become, they find themselves. And really there's usually like 7, I call them 7 crying babies. So they all need attention, and they, you know, all demanding that bottle, and you have to move around the studio feeding each one. And they will, say, I need that, pull it, and it becomes a part of the next iteration. But if 7 is usually the number, and then that one falls off, leaves the studio, whatever, and another one replaces it. Aluminum and wood. Nice. That's gone too. Didn't make it. This one's in the Mickey Leland building in Houston, and it's on a glass wall. And I haven't had any phone calls about any incidents of it sliding off the wall, but I did not sign off. Did not sign off on this, but they came up with some space-age glue to attach these things to the, and that was got to be over 10 years ago now. So it's like a hieroglyphics or, of my language, all the materials I've worked with at that time. The one in the, that's hanging out Facebook and also in the airport in San Francisco, very different. Same ideology, but very different because the materials have changed over the years. Just a detail. That's the one at the tape, Black Monstrosity. We call that one Action Black in the studio, So they do, they in the studio, they will have working titles, Action Black. Tree Monstrosity. And I should tell you, Ursula gave me permission to tell this story. She came to visit the studio while I was working on this thing. And of course, the root section, she just needed to, she just started grabbing them and hauling them across the room. I didn't help her at all. She took all the roots out of the piece, and as the piece was standing there, she said, now it's done. And I said, it's magnificent, Ursula. Looks exactly like your piece, honey. True story. Yep. Well, that's passion for you, That's me in Machu Picchu, and I do travel in order to sort of get inspired. It's not a one track, what I do. So that means I need to continue to sort of feed all parts of me in order to sort of get material so I can go back to the studio and hopefully, do that, Redwood Forest or something like that. Looks like us, honey. This is my adventures in China. 4 years of that is, China's the Wild West. I mean, really. The kind of things that I learned there, or the trade-offs, I should call. I mean, I was working with color glazing, the whole alchemy of working, in a place that's one of the cradles of civilization. Ain't nothing like it, And I was smashing these vases, they were allowing me to do a lot of things, but they were also throwing them out because they just thought, oh, this is trash. I said, no, this is art. This is my art, And they're like, oh, they had a tradition, mega years of making these fantastic works of, of craft and vases. And I was like, oh, I'm learning from you. You're giving to me. But they were actually appropriating a lot of things I was not aware of. I mean, when I was smashing things, a friend calls me in Shanghai and said, don't get mad, but I saw your work, in a clothing store, decorating the wall in the clothing store. I said, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, well, these guys at the foundry, they figure, okay, this is worth something, So they started taking my little technique, and there it was, a clothing store in the mall, all over. You'll see my works, actually. If you visit China, you will see my work. And Jeff Koons and a bunch of others, but it ain't Jeff Koons, though, And this is what I came back with. color, 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 color. Color, color, color. So they can steal or appropriate all they like. I came away with something very special, you know. My work became alive with color. Explosions or explosive. And what the kids are doing on social media with these things is just, I'm just blown away. I mean, I'm ancient, you know, so this whole social media thing and how they speak to these folks, you know, and how I'm incorporated into that is magical, you know. Magical. Look at that. My goodness. But they're inspired, you know. And this is what I mean by complicit, you know, that you do finish the works. I mean, I start them, but you finish them. Complicit. Look at this. I could have never, you know, they had signs saying don't climb. These kids, you know what I mean? They wanted to become a part of this, you know, and I did not anticipate that. But there they were, daring, you know. Look at that. That's love. You know, all I need to do is just get the hell out of the way, you know. It's magical. Now, if I were to do, I mean, I'm being asked now to sort of create, this work was not really created to endure the outsides and, you know, it's just not, you know. The weather has transformed this thing already into exactly what I would like it to be. I've already pulled it in, but as I'm looking at it, it's like, you know, what the come away on this is that if I were to do outdoor sculpture, I have to sort of figure out a way to still bring the public in. You know, it's not something that you should be able to become a part of it in some way, you know. So I have to figure that one out. That's just me in the studio. Exhausted. I mean, man, I look at this, I just get tired, you know. It's oh God. I have to go back there. Yeah. And this is actually a piece in, this was exhibited in Basel, Switzerland at Unlimited. And I think that's it. Yep. All right.
So Ursula and Leo are going to join me on stage, and I'm going to ask them a few questions, and then I'm going to open it up for you all to ask questions. So just give us a minute while we get situated. We're good to go.
All right.
The first question is the easy one. So I heard you talk about when you became aware of Ursula's work. Do you all remember when you first met each other? Like where, when, how?
Wow. It's interesting. It becomes like this. It's like what came. I remember the first work. And then how did we meet thereafter? I had suspected that Judy might have something to do with that in some way.
Oh, that the woman took me to your studio.
Ah, that was it. That's right.
Yes. But how long ago was it?
Oh,
What is her name?
years ago.
What is her name?
Gosh, who would that?
No, you know her.
Yeah. There's a lot of water under that bridge, girl. There's a lot of water passing. It's been a long time. It wasn't an artist.
No.
No, she wasn't an artist.
No, she's somebody who helps artists and buys your work. Like she bought a piece of yours and a piece of mine. Yeah.
Who was that? Isn't it terrible that we can't remember the people who buy our works? They should be stamped on our butts, you know. Bought and sold by.
Okay, turn around.
Hey, life ain't fair.
So what was it like to meet each other in person?
Shoot. I mean, it's I said to Ursula earlier that, you know, it doesn't really matter who you're born into, your family, whatever. It's just, you don't have a choice with that, you know. But the very idea that there are other people moving around out there, and hopefully you'll find them, and they belong to you. Yeah, you're part of the same tribe. It ain't family. It ain't your family you was born in the world with, you know? It's like, you know, you just got thrown in the pot with them.
That's so moving. This thinks otherwise.
No, we are spiritually connected. Interesting always to sort of hear how our philosophies do like this. You know, there are definitely times when I say, "Boy, I will clean that up." You know, when Ursula says something, it's like, "Wow." I say what I say about as I'm moving forward in the work is I'm in a position, the best position I can possibly be in, which is that I don't know. I don't know. I've heard Ursula say something very similar to that. It's your what if, you know, what's on the other side. The not knowing actually is the gift, is the drive, you know, it's the thing that keeps pulling you forward.
Because if you know, you're already somehow, if you really know and know that this is going to be a success, that it's already not raw enough, it's already not interesting enough, and you're not taking any chances. And you're being too safe.
To all you artists out there, it ain't safe. Get your ass in gear.
Well, I think after seeing the presentation today and when I found out you all were friends, I mean, to me, I see so many kind of similar ideas and influences and inspirations and ways of working. Like you're both so like labor intensive, hands-on. The process is so much a part of the work. And I've heard you both talk about different artists that have influenced you or inspired you. So Leo, I know like Jackson Pollock, Jack Whitten, Louise Nevelson, and I've heard you talk about Ronald Bladen and Giacometti. I just wonder, do you see these similarities in your work, these kind of links of inspiration and
You know,
influence?
one of the things I feel is that you really work, but the way you work is so different from the way that I work. I don't know, take it over.
You better finish that thought.
Stuck.
You better finish that thought.
What do you think is different in the way you work versus the way Leo works?
You take things apart a lot. You know, you work with things that you put together. But that's what I do too.
That's right.
You know, because I cut the cedar, but I'm just thinking that you do it in a way like you take chunks out of the wood, you know, and I don't do that so much. You know, I don't carve my work. You know, I leave it at a 4x4 almost always, or 2x4 cedar. And then I work with that. I work the ends of them. Sure. You know, so it's a different way of working.
Well, you know, Ursula, honestly, it's really about where our boundaries are. You know, with you, you know yours is going to be within this.
Yeah.
And I'm incorrigible. I'm like, outlaw. So I'm gonna break. I'm gonna break out.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna charge in.
Yeah, but
you know,
that's very important inside of you. That's very important.
Yeah, it's interesting as a metaphor for the way I live, because obviously, you know, when there's this idea of a universe that you could live in, that's tame, that's, you know, I'm not going to stay in that place, even if it means I'm going to go belly up if I, you know, I'm in a position right at this very moment
Yeah.
where, I put myself in a situation just to survive,
Yes.
put a fire under my butt.
Yes,
So
yes,
it's just
yes.
always a matter of, okay, what, is it safe? If it's
Yes.
safe, if you figured out this is a nice place to be in, then guess what? It's not a nice place to
Wrong.
be in. It's wrong.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So the philosophy is not just about making the actual work. It's actually living the life of that philosophy. That's the most important thing for me. So it's not the fact that I can create things. It's the clarity is the gift. The clarity is the gift.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have different ideas about clarity.
Absolutely. Enlighten us. I mean, listen, honey, I'll tell you, right now it's just me and you. I want to just devour, grab all of what you have to offer. It's just, I feel this fantastic synergy always with you and your work, and I always know that you're out there and you're beating it, And I just always want to hear what, clarification, what's on the other side of.
Clarify is like taking something and scrubbing it so it's really, really clean, and that's awful. You don't want that. And I don't want that.
Yeah. We better get the boxing gloves out.
Before we do that, we're going to ask if any of you all have questions that you would like to ask.
Yeah, I've got a question. Ursula, you're from Brooklyn, New York. You live in the concrete jungle, yet all the pieces that I've seen that you're putting out, they're out in the country. They're massive pieces that are outside of the spaces. How did you come to be able to marry together, living in that environment with your interest in putting things out here?
Oh, you haven't seen my studio. It's huge. I mean, I complain about the height of the height of the ceiling. I have to thank God that it doesn't have more height, because I would just go crazy. But I'm talking about large works, and I make small works too that are pretty gorgeous, that are just as important or just as hard, to win as my huge ones. It's just what they need. You just when you start, when you start, you have to have something in your mind, because otherwise you can't start. So you have to have something in your mind, and sometimes it's the thing that in the last time that you made a piece, you really wanted to do this, but you couldn't because you had too much already built that was doing something else. So you can sort of pretend you're trying to go back to that. But really, what happens is that you might have a yearning that feels like it will take you, it might take you somewhere, but that somewhere you want to hope that is interesting to you, somewhere that you wanted to know, to a place that you've never been. So that usually happens when you build it, and the more you build it, the more you kind of, that's for me, the more you kind of know what else it needs, because it identifies itself more and more as you grow it.
Ursula, in keeping with that, do you try and dictate as to where a particular piece of your work is placed? For example, at this museum, did you decide that you wanted it where it is, or do you leave it up to the institution that purchases it?
Well, if everybody as smart as her is in that institution, I just leave it to, I'm just kidding.
But he asked me to repeat the question, so I just want to say the question is, when a museum like ours wants to acquire your work, do you determine where it will be placed, or does the museum, or do you do it together?
I mean, you know, there is no answer to that, or there is all answers to that, you know, that there are always kind of some answers that are more intelligent than others. So who decided where we were going to be putting our piece?
Yeah, unfortunately, my memory is a sieve. So 13 years ago, we
Yes,
started talking
yes.
to you, 14 years, I
Yes.
think. And I think we hadn't even started the construction of the building. So
Yes.
we showed Ursula the plans and kind of the general area.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how we picked the exact site, to tell you the truth, but
I think I had something to do with it.
yeah.
So it's, but you have somebody that knows the land and that knows what's going to be coming onto it, you know, so that there are people that you know you can trust, and so it could have worked really well, you know, if you had made them, you know, that, but this is just worked a different way.
Another question?
I've never heard of an artist that takes their art, kind of finishes it, and starts taking it apart and taking from here. And is that something? Are there other artists that do that? I've never
You
heard.
said finish. You said finish. That was actually the wrong word. No. That it's actually that's the relative. You know,
Yeah.
you're saying finish. I'm saying actually possibilities. You know, so I'm always about the what if. You know, what if I took this and put it over here? So that just gives you this much more space to become, the piece that you guys have here would not have become itself, and it would continue to become if it was still in the studio. But the fact is here now, I can look at parts of it and say, I know exactly where that came from. That was a piece unto itself, and so is that over there. There are sections of it that, it's determined to sort of find itself. Each work in the studio is determined to find itself, and I just have to get out of the way. So I'm an instrument for assisting them to sort of get there.
And that you're not satisfied
Never.
until you're satisfied.
I think, yeah, the longer they stay hanging around the studio, the more they keep speaking to you, and they let you know that there's possibilities.
Thanks so much for being here today. I'm a big fan of both of your works. For your sort of planning process of both of your larger pieces, do you like to start small? What sort of conceptualizing do you do before you move on to the larger works?
Never, because it's like making a model. And to try to make a model, a small model, to figure out a huge piece is for me a horrible mistake, but I've never done it, because what you do is you make a jail, to make this thing, that might have looked cute, in this thing, and then I think the better trust is to trust yourself when you're working on the piece, and to keep judgments all the time about what you're doing.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Louder.
Oh, I was wondering, is there a point in the piece where it comes alive for you? I'm hearing both of you speaking about birthing and the life of the piece.
Yeah, but there's no point. But there are many points, or sometimes you don't even get a point. You don't even get that. You know, sometimes I have to burn my pieces, and I do that every other year during the summer in my near my upstate home, because I can't stand looking at them anymore. But so some things feel as though they're impossible. And yet I had a piece that was this high, like so, and it had sort of like a head, and then something that had things that went up and down like this. And it followed me. It was cedar. It followed me for 40 years. You know, I didn't know what to do with it. And I make very few male pieces. Well, this one was a male piece. It was probably my third one or something like that, but I have many, you know, female pieces. So he is so happy in his home now. So I built him a place that he can be in such like good environment. Like it's a kind of nest, but it's not a nest. It's not a nest at all. But you can tell that he is so happy in this thing that I made for him, and it's just like a frame and a backdrop, and so I'm so glad I saved him, you know, and I have a piece, and the piece is going to be shown this October.
Did you have a question?
Ursula, how do you manage balance on your large pieces? You can't just stack them up and not have them topple over.
They've never topped over, and they never will. Because that's really not difficult. And I instinctively, when I have something that has a bottom that's really, if I'm doing a bowl that's really small, you know, I have an instinct for what will fall, you know. So, but not that stops me, you know. But it makes it, you know, a different situation. So those are not worries. I mean, they're things that you can easily take care of.
I think we also have an audience on Zoom. Were there some questions from them we should answer?
Maybe you
Yeah,
can
there's a
answer
question
her.
for Ursula. Many of your works take on the form of vessels, but on a scale that links to cosmic associations. And you've been quoted saying, "The structure of the bowl is a means by which I can understand almost anything." Could you describe the importance of containers, vessels, and bowls in your work?
You mean, can I say to you, why do I make bowls? And honestly, I wouldn't be lying to you if I say I really don't know. And maybe I can also say I've made so many bowls. I said, Ursula, enough. But Ursula didn't stop, you know. So I think that there must be something that's a trigger. And I mean, do you want to have another explanation? here it goes. And I'm really afraid to say this. However, I had very rough childhood with all of my seven children that were with me. These were my brothers and sisters. We went through hell, but none of us died. And because of my mother, who was like a courageous woman that was able to keep us all alive. And food was really, really important. So I think that somehow I am, trying to get at some kind of, bountiful food thing. But see, I'm sorry I said this because it might not be true.
I think one more question.
This is for Leonardo. The opposite of the small base is how your pieces are flying off the wall, and they look like they're going to fall, but they don't. And how does that feel, and how do you achieve that?
Oh, that's a secret.
No, that's your power. No, he does that so well.
How does it feel? Boy,
You like it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Ursula has spoken.
It feels good.
I like it.
And I was reluctant to because hearing you guys talk is really much more important. But when you started with the slide of yourself with Captain America, and you said that you were asked why you didn't draw a black superhero, I love history, and I love the history of Marvel. And I think it's really interesting that Captain America was created back in the 40s. It was a Jewish artist who created him to represent and gather the youth to garnish support against Nazism. And after World War II in 1960s, he took Captain America and the Nazis. He still saw neo-Nazism within the United States, and instead he took it and he took on the KKK. And it was his way of reaching the youth of America. And his confident, some questioned whether or not his girlfriend, but definitely his mentor, his name is Ursula. Throughout those Captain America Marvel editions back in the 1960s. And so the irony of the whole situation, and when you said you didn't have a black superhero, in a colorblind world you did.
Isn't that something?
And so that was really beautiful to me, that there you were back then, not knowing that, but that he was. And
Thank you.
And that he had done so much, and that there's this odd connection even within Marvel that you brought up.
Wow. You should record that.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for spending the afternoon with us.